welcome back to Gunners Rose Podcast, where we are positively Patreon. And this will be free on iTunes and Spotify, as it is the Champions League final. But a little preview of what you're getting over on the Patreon. Try to get a little extra sneak peek of the Patreon up on our main feed once a week at the minute. And then obviously through the summer, we're going to still be smashing that Patreon with the World Cup and transfers. And we've actually got a tiny bit of transfer news today. But really, it's all about previewing. And I genuinely, when we started this podcast 3 years ago, did I ever believe we were going to preview a Arsenal Champions League final? No. I really didn't. And a friend of mine, Elton Prince at WWE, it's funny because he thinks Arsenal fans are a little victimy and believe we were never going to be in Champions League finals or win Premier Leagues again when we were a giant club. And I do understand the sentiment, and what he's saying is correct. But I really, truly believe when we started this podcast 3 years ago, I think we'd just come off the year where we came second, but it was very much it felt like an upset. It felt like we were well ahead of the project, and we can talk a little bit about what Josh said yesterday in the overlap. But we were ahead of the process, and I think it did seem like a fluke. And I remember when we started the podcast, it was when we bought Raya. First episode was all about Nottingham Forest first game. This is one where Timber tore his ACL, and we were talking about, and we had Joe, Simon, myself talking about it. And, I think we should stick with Ramsdale, but you got to trust Arteta knows what he's doing with Raya. Boy, did we not know. And I really didn't and we were talking about, do we mount another charge, or was that just a fluke? And we didn't know we were in for a treat that season, because that was the season where we lost by a point, I believe it was, and it went to the last day. The following year, obviously, injuries, and then this year winning the league. But I truly didn't think I'd ever be previewing a Champions League final. Like, it's just so bonkers, and it's just something that I don't want it to pass us by, because I've been talking, obviously, Eric, like 3-4 times a week here on the podcast, all about how good this year's been and how mad it feels to be kind of in a situation where we've won the league and we can actually enjoy the Champions League final. But I think with that has come almost like a dulling of the fact we're in a Champions League final, because if last year, when we had that year where we went to semis with PSG, if we made the final, we would be dancing in the streets about being in a final. Not about winning the league or anything like that, not even winning the final, just being in a final. But it's kind of been hidden behind this kind of huge achievement of winning the title for the first time in 22 years. That we're not, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me, but I'm not appreciating the fact that, oh my word, we're in the Champions League final against PSG. Separate to all this, obviously, my son, he really loves footballs. He has an Arsenal football. We have 2 signed Arsenal footballs from like the 2016 era. It's a very interesting ball, but I don't know why we have 2 of them. He plays with them, and in our garage we've got along the back wall about 30 footballs. Just throughout the years, they've just kind of some popped, some flat, some up, some dirty, some not. Just throughout the years, just different footballs that have kind of made the move over here to Wales when we moved. He asks to be carried out there so he can point at them. Weirdly, next to each other, is an Arsenal Puma yellow ball and a PSG holographic ball next to each other. So it was in plain sight, right in front of us. But it just goes back, because I remember buying the PSG ball when we were in France, and this was probably closer to the era where Arteta was there and Gabriel Heinze was there. And the other ball, I can't remember how we ended up. I probably got it from the Emirates, doing our yearly voyage up to the Emirates. But it's just so mad to think that, one, those 2 balls were together, but the other one was, I can't tell if he's pointing at the Arsenal one or the PSG one. It feels like he's trying to tell us something. And that's where my superstition's at. But it is just wild, because I'm just looking at that PSG badge going, God, European football is so iconic, isn't it? I know the Premier League's so iconic with the way that trophy looks and the history and how hard it is to truly win it. But then you look across at Europe, and just that's where the top players, when you see these Instagrams and stuff, people saying football's just not what it used to be, and they talk about Seedorf and Kaká, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Robben, Deco, and they say like, yeah, but this year, Vieira, this era doesn't have these players. But I think it does. I think it's just not being completely taken over by individual players as opposed to collectives, and you're kind of seeing that along the lines of the actual teams. I think when you look at PSG, they look like a great unit, a great team. And then when you look at Arsenal, they're a great team, they're a great unit, but you couldn't necessarily pick out the star player. Rice is clearly the guy this year everyone's talking about. But there's also Saka, there's also Eze, there's also Odegaard, there's also Gyökeres, there's also Gabriel Saliba, there's Raya. And when you look at PSG, there's all these players. And I think what happened back then was you had your Ronaldos and Ronaldinhos and all these kind of things. And when I think of it, I was like, I think we do have these types of players. It's just, I think in hindsight, everything always looks bigger. When you look back to the Champions League final we were in, and you think of Henry, don't you? You think of Pires and Lehmann, Sol Campbell, and you think of their team. And I think it was like Hendrik Larsson got the winner, and who was in that team? Was it Ronaldinho? I want to say Messi played in it. There's a lot of good players. But when you look forward to this one, you've got Vitinha, you've got Dembele, you've got Kvaratskhelia, you've got Saka, you've got Rice, Saliba, Gabriel, Raya. I know I've missed players. Marquinhos, maybe Hakimi. But when you look at that, you go, oh my, yeah, there are huge stars still in European football. And, I just watched a Liverpool doc, which frightened the life out of me watching it, where the Istanbul doc. And just how many little things have kind of got you go your way on the day or the weeks of. And the team that they put out that day was not good, and the league form was not good. But the team they put out with a new manager, when you read out that lineup, you just go, how did they get the best of a team that was, Maldini, Seedorf, Gattuso, Crespo, Shevchenko? How did that team get beat by that team? And that's why it's an American phrase, but any given Sunday is a thing, because sometimes you just catch lightning in a bottle. Sometimes you catch magic, and sometimes the big superstars, that we talk of so fondly, like I said, in these memes, or when you look back at certain World Cups, you could name the Brazil team from that year, and you go, what a legendary team. They didn't win anything, though. That exact team didn't, for example. You're like, so, sometimes things just look better on paper than they actually were, or the eye test was a lot better than actually what they delivered. And you could probably say that about Arsenal this year. When you look at Man City's team, full of very, very expensive players and huge players and players on the world stage, as we do, but maybe there's a level up, but they weren't good enough to beat us. It's the same reason why PSG and are managing to beat teams like Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and that, because they're a team. And what I love about this Champions League final is it's, I think, the two best teams in world football. Maybe not the individual, you're not going to see Haaland or Mbappe. You're not going to see, well, Ronaldo and Messi obviously are well gone, but you're going to see the likes of Rice and Vitinha, and you're going to see Dembele, and you're going to see Saka. And I think there's something really fun about that, in the sense that it's, I don't know what the exact wording of it is, but it's the best defensive team and unit in the world versus the best team and attacking unit in the world. And Kvaratskhelia and Dembele won the Ballon d'Or, but I don't think anyone puts these two players above Haaland. I don't think they put them above Mbappe, Vinicius. Did you know what I mean? I don't think some of these players are actually considered the level that everyone thinks, but the unit is, and I love that. And I do think there's going to be such an interesting game of defense versus attack. But I think that both teams, I think there's an element that saying defense versus attack and not the best two teams definitely devalues it slightly, because I think PSG are a lot better defensively than what people are saying. I think sometimes we can kind of go, oh, they've got the best attack, and it's like, yeah, but they just completely ghost their defensive duties. No. They work as a team, they rotate as a team, and they get back as a team. But maybe they shade attack is a lot better than the defense. With us, I think the defense is a lot better than the attack, but it doesn't mean we don't attack well. I mean, this is a team that scored the second most goals in the Premier League this year. It is not, and we can get goals from anywhere, because when you look across our squad for the season, there has certainly been people like Martinelli who got maybe a few assists and a goal in the whole of the Premier League campaign, but the goal he scored was so important. It was so important to the whole season. The goal against City. Trossard didn't have a great season, but he got the goal against West Ham, and you do look across and you go, wow, the goals are coming from everywhere. Timber scored a brace, Zubimendi scored a brace, Gyökeres scored a brace at different times this year. You don't know, is it a set piece? And I saw, I watched it on Wednesday. I had not fully watched the overlap yet, but watching it, listening to Mikel Merino talk and saying about Gary Neville asked him about the set pieces, and I think he's so right in, over time the punditry's kind of turned it into like almost this sin or like dark arts, that set pieces are this new fad that people have found a way of ruining football, and it's just not. It's just a part of the game. It always has been, and we're getting better at the fine margins, as I mentioned on Wednesday, but learning how to get the best out of it, because I've talked about it on the podcast a lot. We don't do as much pushing and shoving as people think. Ours is all about running lanes and just finding the areas and great delivery. Of all the teams in the Premier League, I think we probably make the least contact with players on attacking corners. Like I said, on defensive corners, I think we're just as guilty as everyone else. I think we got our back to the ball. I think we're hugging. I think we're pulling. I think we're doing all sorts. But as far as the actual attacking, watch our corners. They're so smart, so clever. We've actually got very good at short corners because I think, again, fine margins. I think we were one of the first teams to get a set piece coach, and we got ahead of how good set pieces were going to help in the run of winning Premier Leagues. I think we got there early. Do you remember when Pep started playing 4 centre-backs at the back? I think Arteta actually did that first. I think Arteta's been very quick at kind of learning the new thing and starting it. I think people aren't going to give him credit until now necessarily. Now he's won a major. But I think this has been happening for a while. He's just not had something to show for it. And as Rafa Benitez once said, no one sees the day-to-day, the training, the everything. All they care about is trophies won. And until you can show them that, they're not going to listen to what you're saying. And I think that's what Arteta's been in. I think now he might start getting his flowers of... He was ahead of that. He was ahead of the set pieces. And if you've seen the last maybe couple months of Arsenal, we're very good at short corners. I mean, we're creating shooting opportunities and chances on short corners nearly every time now. And that's so dangerous because, one, we're doing it because we're getting ahead of next year when they decide they're going to clamp down on any kind of movement in the box or whatever it is. I think we're getting ahead of that. But not just that. Teams now are going to have to scout our short corners. And now they do not know if we're running a short corner or one to the back post or whatever it is. They do not know what we're doing. So that's the excitement, is that's only going to cause more problems for other teams. And that's going to be unbelievable for us in the long run. I'm just going to open my drink. So Mikel Merino talked about the importance of the set piece and how it can change a game. It can open up a game. It can change the momentum of a whole fixture by just one kick of the ball, one header of the ball, wherever it is, or one decision, or one passing lane or blocking lane or wherever it is. That can open up any team in the world. And maybe sometimes, take a drink, you don't have the players, for example. Is our left winger as good as their left winger, for example? No. I think Trossard's been good this year. I think Martinelli's always had potential. He's just never necessarily seen it. I love our players. But is Kvaratskhelia the best left winger in the world right now? Yeah. So, can we out left wing their left wing? No. Our centre forward might be Kai Havertz, it might be Gyökeres, but either of them, are they better than Dembele technically? Probably not. Do we, I think it's actually a lot tighter than what people think. I think it's pretty even. But some would say, yeah, they can't touch him there. On the right, I mean, they might have Doué, they might have Barcola. I think Saka is the guy in the tie. Technical ability in the middle even. Sometimes we're going to think, can we physically or technically be better than them in every position? Not a chance. But you can't change that. God-given talent of Kvaratskhelia, for example. I'm sure he's working hard. But some people are just very good. Some teams have better players than other teams. And you can't actually change it. You can train as hard as you want, but you'll never be as good as Messi or Ronaldo, these game changers. But what you can do is spend hours on the training field learning how to make a set piece untouchable. And if that guy can get very good at deliveries by doing 1,000 reps or 10,000 hours on the training pitch, and those guys can learn the blocking lanes and watch 1,000 minutes of tape that we have on PSG. And I don't want this to become a thing of, this is just the first point I'm getting to. I don't want it to be, they're just going to rely on set pieces. To an extent, I'd love to score a set piece. I think it's a part of the game that I think we're good at, and I think we'd be silly not to really attempt it. And I'm not saying we should try and win corners. I'm just saying if we win a corner, we've got to try and take our opportunity. But what you can do is watch hours of tape and go, with a set piece coach who does this for a living, and go, this is what they do. If we do this, we should be able to score. And we could take that and here, if they do this, we'll do this. If they do this, we'll do this. The only set pieces are like NFL when you look at quarterbacks and running routes. It's not, there's almost there's a blueprint. It's just finding out which blueprint. Whereas in the open field of football, yeah, there's patterns of play, but realistically, people are going to express themselves, and you do not know how. It's like trying to predict what an artist is going to do on a canvas. You can't, but you can predict what a mathematician's going to do with an equation and how he's going to figure out, because there's 5 different ways he's going to figure out. So if you can figure out the 5 ways, you can block those 5 ways. With things like that and expressing yourself, you can't block it. You just got to hope. When they rotate, yeah, you might be able to find some kind of patterns, like in boxing. If you watch enough tape, he does this, this, and then this. If he always does this, he does this. But sometimes if he does this, he does this. You can look out for all that. But if a guy just starts kind of, you look at Muhammad Ali and people like that, they go off, and you cannot predict it. Hence why they're so good. And PSG are the closest thing to that in modern football, I'd say, as far as they sometimes don't do what they do on tape. They change, they evolve, they adapt in game, and it's hard to prepare for, But you can adapt in the moment with good management and good captain and good communication. But what I love is set pieces, free kicks, corners, long throws. They can be designed in a lab and correctly made, and other teams then have to do their homework. What I know PSG are going to do is a lot of homework on the way we do set pieces, because they know this is the one part of the field they know they cannot match us on. And again, I'm not saying they're not going to win 1-0 because they score a set piece. I don't think we're particularly good at defending set pieces, but I think we're very good at attacking set pieces. Hence, we've broken the record by 2 goals this year in the Premier League. But it's just something that I think would be silly to not set up. I don't think we should take a long throw every time the ball goes out, like we did at the Parc des Princes last year. I think it caused them gave them kittens. Every time we had that long throw, you could see them panicking. But that was more a Donnarumma issue than a PSG issue. But I actually think their goalie's worse at both aspects of the game. So, if 50% of our throws in the final third are long, I'm happy. If every corner is delivered into the box of Rice and Saka, and Gabriel's attacking, if there's 5 corners and 5 long throws, I can't imagine there's not one very, very good chance and at least a couple half chances from that. Can we win 5 corners? Do not know. Will we win throws that high? You'd think at least a couple, but there's no guarantees, and that's what I think is one of the forgotten bits about set pieces. Is you've got to be in a really dangerous area to win a corner, unless they're players are going to start turning around just kicking out for corners for no apparent reason, which I don't see. And I actually played Sunday League as a child with a player that had a habit of turning towards his own goal and just volleying it out for corners. And I don't know, to this day, I don't know where his head was at, but he did it more than once, and it was crazy. So I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're the same as Sam Dennis, shout out Sam Dennis, but it's just if we can get up that field and get particularly overlaps out wide and crash that box with people like Rice, depending on where he plays, because God forbid it's not right back, but if he plays as the 6 and Lewis Skelly as the 8, is Zubimendi the 8? Zubimendi he's very good in the air. Like, is he going to kind of crash the box? Is it Rice going to crash the box? Is it Ezra or Odegaard? But because I really don't, I know this is a preview pod and we're just talking about set pieces in a minute. Which I'll finish that because I think I've just moved a load of wrapping paper. That is not good audio. I apologise. He just mentioned the importance of it, and just kind of when you hear it from a player's perspective and how it's a game changer and something that can switch momentum. I think that's so important because you get a set piece and it's a good whip in, and Gabriel misses. Let's say it gets tipped over. Another corner. That pressure, they start to then fear it. Therefore, when Saka goes on the outside, they're almost allowing him into the box. They're like, I'd rather him running into the box than that. And everything's a domino effect. Like I said about the short corners, is if you get good at short corners, people have to protect both then. Therefore, someone's missing. If they don't want us to leave a corner, it means Saka can go on the outside, and he's become very dangerous on the outside on his right foot. Whereas before, he was very known for that kind of cutting on his left, like a Robin type. and get that shot away, which you don't see as much because people are protecting that. But now he's doing so much damage on the other side. That's the huge benefit of all of this. So set pieces could be a huge factor. Other factors, obviously the injuries. I think if Hakimi or Dembele are out, and or if Timber's out. The news we've had is Hand of Arsenal have spoken again. A little bit bad language in their post as well, which made you. Are they trying to get us off the scent? But they also alluded that if I'm around still after the Champions League final, I'll give you more information through the summer. What? My conspiracy tinfoil hat back on is. Are they going to announce who he is after the Champions League final? Is he going to be at the parade? Is that the plan? Was like, this year we're going to have this account that's going to set a narrative for us, and then on the parade, we'll just have him storying, and we'll just be quite clear who it is, and we'll just move on from it. Does he just go away? Does he leave the club? What's happening? I do not know genuinely what is going on with that account. But either way, they've come up with some news, and in typical media fashion, a load of Arsenal information's come out the week of a Champions League final. They did all this in the weeks leading up to the end of the season. It did not work. They started leaking the news about Trossard and his family situation. They releasing end of contracts, who wants to leave. They were doing all of that to try and disrupt. Now they've started again. This time there's a lot of social discourse about Declan Rice and his personal life. I think it's a load of nonsense from what I can tell. They're just trying to disrupt players and fans and all sorts. But there was talk about Jesus leaving and other players leaving. And Hand of Arsenal basically said that Arsenal are going to be pretty ruthless and cutthroat in the way in which they sell this year, but also not to a detriment, but to what's the word? They're going to be. I can't remember the exact. I should read it, but I'm not going to. They're going to basically make sure they get their price. They're not going to allow people like we have in the past where we had to kind of release players or allow a certain player to go for a certain price that we're not overly keen on. All that kind of stuff. We're going to be pretty stern. And I think the fee they're looking for at Jesus is 20 million. The fact that he played that last game really felt like kind of a nod to say, you've been a part of the whole process. You're the one that really changed it in the start. Here's your goal. Here's your last start. Go enjoy it. And 20 million, the really great thing about 20 million is that is a fee that Brazilian clubs could pay. It's a fee that a lot of Premier League players teams could pay. Because when you look across that league, I think you drop him in to Everton, for example, I think you make Everton instantly not a world-class team, a very good team. Because if they can keep Grealish and Drewsbury Hall and Njai, and maybe you keep Barry and move Beto on, or the other way around, to add him to that fray is I think, a very good idea. The other team I was looking at was obviously Palace, with if Mateta does move on, getting him in, but they've also got Strad Larson, they've got Eddie Nketiah. It already feels like they're too packed, that maybe need to get down to two. But with Iriola coming in, I actually thought with their Palace winning another major the last year that the Conference League's going to be called a major. Then with Iriola in the Europa League and a little bit of money behind them with the sales of Gay and Eze and probably Mateta, you add Gabriel Jesus to that. You get someone on loan from a major club to give him some minutes. And I thought, God, Palace could be a force next year. But I just think Everton, someone like that, I think they could 100% afford it. But also Brazil, I think he's lured back to Brazil. That's what I think happens. But they basically said as well on Hand of Arsenal to kind of, that's the bit of transfer news, is I think there's a lot of talk around, obviously, the players we've mentioned before, like Ben White and Norgard and Kepa and Trossard's end of contract. But there's a little bit of talk that he might be looking for an extension. Martinelli's post felt very, not just emotional because it was the end of his run with Arsenal, like the end of the season and the end of the project. Not the end of the project, but you know what I mean? Like he'd been there from the start with Saka, he'd made it, and he was very emotional. And, he's basically said, whatever happens next, I'll forever be Arsenal. And that felt very like, yeah, I'm going to be moved on for 25, 30 million, which I think is far too cheap. And if we are to believe Hand of Arsenal, I think anything under 50 million, when you look at Gordon potentially going to Barcelona for 90 million, there is no reason Martinelli shouldn't be going for at least 50, 60 million. He is a top player. I think he's as good as Gordon. There is an English tax, but there should be a Brazil tax. This is a top player that if he ends up at PSG or Barcelona or Real Madrid and I don't think he's going to end up at any of those teams. I think the type of teams he'll end up at, and I think someone who'd sit really well, suit very well, is someone like Atletico. I think that team, or Dortmund, they would get a lot out of him. And I think you'll see the numbers and everyone will go, well, where was this in the Premier League? It was there. It's been a group effort. And he's put a lot of effort in. And I'd hate to see the back of him, but he is someone else who's been talked about. But moving on to the second part, the hand of Arsenal, what they kind of mentioned was people talking about, and this is my issue, that was a slight worry on Wednesday, which was, are they locked in? Are they focused? And he said that he's got the demon in him again. They've been training since Tuesday. They leave for Budapest today. This is the Thursday that I'm recording. I don't know what day this goes up, either tomorrow or today. I might end up putting it up today, actually. But he said they've been locked in and focused, and they've actually been preparing for PSG for around 10 days. So, which is true, because any waking moment, I'm sure, has been spent. Here's Fulham's. We've known we're in this match since before the Burnley game. But I can't remember which game it was before the Burnley game. There was a game, West Ham. And I'm sure because of the Premier League that I was taking major focus. But once that Burnley game got won, I'm sure the focus switched. And I'm sure it focused earlier than that, because they knew that if the league didn't get done, they needed to be very prepared. Because imagine if we had lost that on the last day. The Champions League would have been all the pressure, all the marbles on it, and they needed to be prepared in case. So I'm sure they've been busy and preparing things like set pieces and what they do and how they do it. And then I'm sure Tuesday came and it just, straight into study and lock in, and this is where it's at, and getting that fitness back. And not that it's gone, because we've been playing every week every 3 days almost for the last 6 months, but a little bit of freshness into like some of the players missing the Palace game, but I'm sure they're actually fully invested. They know what they got to do, and as long as they can pull it off. And I think I saw some a video of them all turning up to training ground, and there was very much a vibe of, we know what to do. Now it's just about kind of put it what's the word? Put it into practice. We know exactly what we're supposed to do to win the game. We just now got to do it, and then obviously adapt to whatever PSG give us, or what. Something maybe we didn't expect, like I said earlier, something different, but that's what we're waiting for. So it's a pretty exciting kind of situation, which is they need to get to Budapest. They'll do the media, they'll fine tune, and then you start feeling that rumbling. I think for the players, they'll start feeling that we're in this. This is the biggest game. This is what, other than the World Cup final, this is the game that everyone in the world watches. There's going to be non-football fans. There's going to be fans of other clubs, from Madrid fans to Barcelona all the way to Galatasaray, and everyone in the world is going to be watching this. Milan, to see who are the major players, who are the best two teams. And I think this year, different to some years, like for example last year, we aren't the Inter in this team. Don't snip that if we lose 5-0. But we're not. We knew they were the massive underdogs last year. They kind of done so well to get there. They put so much energy in. We were a team that won the league in the Champions League. We didn't draw or lose a game. We have conceded 6 goals. Only 1 goal conceded in knockouts, and that was not from open play. Is no goals conceded. When you look at that across the whole thing, David Raya only conceded 4 goals, and he played 7, because 2 of the goals came in the Kepa game, which was the last game where it didn't matter, and then he's played the 2, 4, 6 others. So he's played 13 and conceded 4. It's, we deserve to be there. And I think the world knows that these are the 2 best teams. It's just about what happens. Unfortunately, we don't have much more information other than, again, Hand of Arsenal said that Jurrien Timber completed a training session yesterday with the team, which is his first proper training session. Is that too late? I do not know. Will there be a decision late? Yes, because you do have to look at it as he's clearly our best right back at the club. He's clearly the best chance to stop Kvaratskhelia, but he's also extremely rusty. He has not played since the Carabao Cup, previous to the Carabao Cup. Is that a risk putting him in? Or do you go with Mosquera, who's been playing the minutes, but he's also very young, very inexperienced, and that's a giant game? I don't know. That is something we're going to probably... I don't think we'll know this, even if I did a preview an hour before the game, or 2 hours before the game, sorry, not an hour. We would know. But 2 hours before the game, if I did this, I don't think we'd still know if Timber was going to play. So no new news as far as the injuries. I think it's going to be a day-to-day thing, and I think maybe Saturday morning we'll get an understanding of if Hakimi and Dembele are there, or if Timber is going to play, or if he has a setback, or if Arteta just actively comes out and said he's not going to be a part of the squad. Because with everyone fit except Ben White, we are in a situation... which is, by the way, if you'd said at the start of the season we make the Champions League final, win the league, and our injury bill is essentially just Ben White, I'd be extremely happy. I'd be extremely grateful we're in a situation where we can choose the team we want to play. Because if Timber was 100% fit right now, we would have no reason to not pick our best team. Because I don't think Ben White was ever going to start this game if they were all fit. He might have played minutes, I don't know. But if they're all fit, Timber was the guy. Saliba and Gabriel, Touchwood, fit. Raya, fit. Calafiori and Hincapié, fit. The midfield, Zubimendi, Rice, Eze, Odegaard, Moreno, even Havertz, if we want to add him in there. Lewis Skelly, they're all fit. Norgard, we don't know if he's fit. There is a chance. But again, I don't think he would have even made the bench. My feeling is. But we've got Saka, Madueke from Gunnerblog. Shout out James, who I messaged this morning, because he gave a Gunther-like chop on the back of Arteta at the end of the press conference. Says that it looks like Madueke isn't a serious injury and he will be a part of the squad and he is travelling. Madueke, Saka fit. Gyökeres, Kai Havertz fit. Trossard, Martinelli fit. Daumann fit if he is there. But with that, you need 11 and then you need 9 on the bench. That is 20 players. When I just name that 11, let's say Timber is in there. Let's say Calafiori plays left back. Let's say Lewis Skelly's in the middle. Let's say it's Saka, Trossard and Gyökeres. That bench now is Kepa. It is Hincapié, Mosquera, Zubimendi, Moreno. Then let's say Madueke, Martinelli, Havertz, and then Daumann. That is your 9 subs. Norgard would be left out. If Norgard's in, I think Daumann comes out. Other than that, I don't think I missed anyone there. I think of the team you'd expect. Obviously, no Ben White, but that is the 9 subs. So I don't know. It's going to be so interesting to see who makes it. You know, there's a part of me that'd love Max Daumann to get minutes. I don't know where, unless this morning I was thinking like, what's the team I would start? What's the team I think? I think he will go with that kind of. I call it his comfort team. I think it's going to be Calafiori, Timber if fit, Saliba, Gabriel, Raya. I think the midfield in his comfort is going to be Rice, Zubimendi and Odegaard, Havertz up front, Saka and Trossard. I think that's what he's going to start because he feels the most comfortable with the press, the defensive unit, the technical ability and everything like that. I think he should play the hot hand, the one that got us through these last 5 games in which City bottled. I think Lewis Skelly, Rice and Eze is the midfield. I would have Saka, Trossard and Gyökeres. And I'd actually end the game with the technical ability because if that other team could get us 1-up or 2-1-up or 1-1, that technical ability could be the thing that changes the game for us later on, as opposed to the runners coming on. Because sometimes what happens is we end up with the safety team playing, and all of a sudden later on in the game, Gyökeres comes on, and he's playing with maybe Eze behind, but he's got Madueke and Martinelli, and there's not much going on, and you've got a tired Rice in the middle. Maybe Zubimendi's come on to kind of calm it down. And all of a sudden, I just don't think it gels. Whereas I think if you start with that hot hand, it's aggressive, it's rotating, it's quality. And then you can kind of slow it down to our pace later in the game. And that's when Havertz and Odegaard and that come on. There is a chance he does play Eze and Odegaard together with Rice behind. I think that's dangerous. As much as I love that team, every time we've seen it, it's never felt fully cohesive. But there is something to Odegaard, Saka and Havertz, or Gyökeres even. Both of them have done it really well. They're starting to combine in the last few weeks, and you think, is that the best partnerships? Because Arteta's talked about partnerships for years. Is that the best partnership? But again, I do not know. So as much as a preview, I haven't really given you much other than my thoughts and I think key moments. But I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is. Just remember, it'll be a good game, whatever happens, unless obviously we do something crazy. Whatever the outcome is, the parade is on Sunday. There's not going to be a static trophy lift because they're worried about danger to fans. They expect around 750,000 now, they're saying, and there's a route that's out, and therefore everyone gets a view of it as opposed to it all being stuck around the Emirates. And I think they're actually avoiding the Emirates a little bit just so we don't get that kind of large abundance of people in one area. So enjoy the game. We'll be back on Monday to talk everything about the Champions League final, and then obviously by next Wednesday we'll be kind of debriefing the whole season as a whole, like, you know, the best and worst situations, the moments, the worst moments, the things that we thought were big, the bad things, everything like that. Look back at some predictions we made at the start of the season. We'll do that next Wednesday, and then beyond that, it's going to be almost straight into World Cup talk, because I think in 5 days time, a lot of people report to their camps. That's how close we are to to the World Cup, and that's going to come very quick. So I'll see you on Monday. Enjoy the Champions League. I hope we win it. We're back next week. Bye bye.